Okay, welcome. This is the council meeting, Council for Minnesotans of African Heritage. Today is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024, and the time is exactly 6:05 p.m. So the meeting is now called to order, and we'll begin with a roll call.
Ash, are you planning to do that, or do you want me to do it? Oh, okay, maybe we lost Ash. So I will move forward with roll call. Chair Doe.
Present.
Vice Chair Crawford.
Present.
Treasurer Mullins is on an excused absence. And then Secretary Adams Lee is also excused absence. Council Member Alfreda Daniels Joasime. Council Member Jude Natty.
Present.
Council Member Mayor Hollis Winston. Council Member Andre Dukes. Council Member Abdirahman Dahir. Senator Fateh. Representative Frazier. And then Representative Hudson has an excused absence. He did say that he had a legislative meeting today.
All right. Thank you very much. And I do see we do have some observers with us today. Joseph, Devin, anyone else? Okay, I just want to welcome all of you to our council meeting. And definitely, if you have comments during the public comment period, you can definitely feel free to make some comments if you wish to do so at that point. Well, welcome. So our agenda, because we don't have a quorum, of course, we will not take any vote, but I hope you had the opportunity to review the agenda as it is. We will follow that. I have one item that I want to propose to add to the agenda, and that is on the unfinished business to add governing and working board. Just that line, governing and working board, just to revisit some of what we talked about from the last meeting as a follow-up. So governing working board. Other than that, I think we can just go through and start with our financial report. The minutes also, this is also referring to the fact that because we wouldn't be able to take a vote, I hope you had an opportunity to also review the minutes from the last meeting at that point. Someone was saying something? Okay. All right, let's roll into the financial report and then we can circle back perhaps later to take the vote when we get more members.
Okay. Great.
All righty. There we go. All right, can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So our financial report, current as of February 1st, 2024, we have $125,746.58 in unobligated funds. And that, for the most part, is due to a $98,000 move from money that was in the full-time salary column to the other operating costs column. We had connected with our accountant, with our finance team at the state, and they, with the budget forecast, helped us determine that we would not need that money for salary. We have since learned from our accountant, after doing some more budget forecasting, that we are slated to carry over $75,000 from fiscal year 2024 into fiscal year 2025. And that's again to come up with the fact that our budget is going to be tighter. We're still receiving the same allocation as we did in 2024. And we also know that we're bringing on 3 full-time staff members and we're undergoing the Hayes review. So there will be salary increases. And we also want to make sure that we can still continue to provide the robust programming for our constituents. And again, most of our spending at CMAH happens between January and June of the fiscal year. As we know, that's when we're doing programming related to the legislative session. We have our Day on the Hill, and then we also have our Juneteenth celebration that we're working on. And then also our interns are onboarded during the legislative session. Does anybody have any questions? Anything I can clarify? Executive Director Sloan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered it pretty well, and 75,000 of that unobligated, I will be trying to hold that in reserve so that we'll have that money for next year. And that's per conversation with the accounting department.
Okay. Did I hear you say
Thank
the interns onboarded already? And
Yes, they are.
Okay.
And one is online right now too. I think I saw Jaime was online. If she's still,
Yes.
she still is. So when we get to the staff, we'll
Yeah.
we'll let her introduce herself. And Chair Doe, I just wanted to mention that Councilmember Dukes has joined us, as well as I believe Councilmember Dahir. So that
Okay.
puts us at a quorum for the meeting.
Thank you. Great. Welcome, council members. Appreciate the fact that you could make it.
My apologies for being tardy.
Oh, okay. Apology accepted. Okay. Let's circle back then to our agenda. We did not take a vote to the agenda. The only item I added there was if there's no other question on the financial report, of course. Okay, it doesn't sound like there's any. So we'll circle back to our agenda. I added an item, governing and working board, just as a follow-up from our previous discussion on the unfinished business. So can I entertain a motion? Can I get a motion?
So moved, Crawford.
Any second?
Second, Dukes.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, any questions? Okay, all those in favor, I'm just making them by saying aye.
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 Right. Okay, so that's carried. The next thing is the minutes from the last meeting. Hopefully you had a time to review that. I'll call for a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved, Dukes.
Second. All right, any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, we will vote by saying aye if you're in
Aye.
favor. Okay,
Aye.
Aye.
any opposed? Any abstain? All right, and that is also carried. Great. So we move ahead with our agenda now for public comments. So we do have some folks here visiting with us, and this is an opportunity. If there's a comment you want to make to the council, we will be happy to hear from you. Take a couple of minutes to do that. That would be great. Joseph and Devin, who are here with us, it's up to you.
Okay, this is Joe Waters.
All right.
Good to see you all again. And Ash, I'm getting better because the weather is not cooperating. It's supposed to be minus 50. My body is adjusted to that. It is not adjusted to the positive 50 temperature the last couple of weeks. But I have a couple of questions that I'll ask the chair, and if you could direct it towards Councilmember Crawford, this one. With the new mayor, Roger Reinhardt, how does he see the council? Because he was in the legislature in the past. How does he see the council, and how does he see the African American community in Duluth? My dad grew up in Duluth, so I'm just curious, how does he see his agenda working for the African American community? And then the other question I had, I can't think of it offhand, but I'm cooking dinner at the same time. So,
At the same time.
but somebody
Okay.
else has something. If I think of it and there's time, I'll raise my hand.
Sure. Okay, no problem. We'll entertain that. So, Councilmember Carl, are you on? Have you met the mayor already?
I have. Mr. Waters, great to see you as well. The only question I have is, what are we having for dinner?
Bacon cheeseburger.
So I
I'll-
have met with the mayor, met with the mayor. He has been extremely busy. I wish I could say I had a chance to really slow him down as of yet. I can still say that for my office, of course, the agenda for our African heritage people is still priority number one. I have not missed a beat. My phone is still ringing, and folks' needs still need to be met. We have not officially sat down, though, as a city and came up with our strategy on the move forward with some of the challenges that we continue to be, of course, last in employment, last in housing, and of course, last when it comes to health disparities. So we'll continue to move that agenda forward. And I'm sure I'm seeing the heads nodding out there, that is true for all of the zip codes from St. Paul to the North Shore.
Right. Okay, well, yeah, I'm sure when you have the opportunity to sit with him, maybe that would provide more insight into as far as his agenda is concerning people of African heritage. Yeah, that would be good. All right, Devin, any comment?
No, I don't really have, I guess, much to say. I'm really just here as an observer, more for the most part. I've worked with Linda and Theo and had numerous conversations over the years about working within child welfare. That's obviously where I come from. So I'm just here to continue to build partnerships and meet the board. I know some of you guys in other capacities, and so I've met many of you guys in other spaces outside of the board, but I'm glad to continue to join and partner. And I would certainly offer, just on a personal note or maybe a professional note, I would certainly offer in a future date a time for us to come in and share the work of our unit too, as well within DHS and what we've been doing over the last really 4 years, but really with full staff last year and a half or so, regarding supporting our communities regarding child welfare. So that's all I have to say. I'm glad to be here and glad to support the work.
Mhm.
Great. You're,
Yeah,
you're most welcome. Go ahead, Linda.
Chair Dow, before you move on, so Devin, we understand that you might be going up under this new organization. Has that happened? Or okay, so that's already happened.
Yeah,
And so
that's
maybe
no,
you could
it
just
hasn't
say
happened
a
yet.
little something about it, just so
Yeah,
that.
I can give you a brief summary. It's slated to be official July 1st. It doesn't change our operations. I think it actually offers some really unique opportunities going forward to partner across some of the other agents that will be joining us. So if you guys don't know, we are going to be our own Department of Children, Youth, and Families, rather than be part of DHS. And we'll be bringing in some other areas from MDH, MDE, juvenile justice, education. So I think will offer some new opportunities for us to partner across the board and do some more systemic work, and move some of the barriers that have existed for our work. So I'm looking forward to that, but it shouldn't change. It doesn't change our focus or our charge as a unit or as an administration. So I don't think anything much will change other than some logos and that kind of stuff, branding and stuff. But I think operationally, it'll be a better move for us to really streamline processes and things to be better collaborative and more focused on the work. So I'm looking forward to that change. But it takes effect on paper July 1st. I think that there'll be still some things that will move over after that in time because just the way timing is. But yeah, it's happening. So it's still full go. I don't know where we'll be. If it'll be in a different area, I have no idea. And we're beginning work internally with some of our planning subgroups. I'm on one of the organizational planning subgroups to help with that transition too. So exciting time, and we'll see what happens.
That's great. Wow. Okay. Yeah, we'll be happy to have you all come back here and just so we can talk about what you do and how that impacts. Of course, definitely, there's a priority area for us here too as well. So That would be great to
Absolutely.
have you. Okay,
I think
so, yeah.
Vice Chair has his hand up.
Okay, I didn't see that. Okay, there you go.
Yes, thank
Let's
you,
check Russell.
Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Theo. Chair, I'd also want to give us an opportunity to go on record recognizing that this is Black History Month as we begin our meeting and our discussion.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Black History Month. Definitely, we have to recognize what have before started, that today we're here and we celebrate this all through this month. I'm sure each of you in your own ways will be engaged in some way with your organizations or whatever entity to make sure that that happens. But yes, we want to recognize that. I don't know, and maybe we can talk about, did we do a statement last year or anything regarding that?
I want to say that maybe we
Maybe.
did. Yeah. I'll have to look. Yeah, we should definitely do some type of statement. But part of our statement is that we're celebrating it through our legislative training and through
Yeah.
our Day on the Hill. We
Yes.
specifically made sure the Day on the
Yeah,
Hill was
exactly.
in February to celebrate Black History Month. Because
Yeah,
we are making history, the legislators, making
Exactly,
history.
right.
absolutely.
Okay, that's a good segue to moving to our unfinished business, Day on the Hill. Let's talk about that.
Okay, well, Day on the Hill is just going incredibly well, and I'm looking for some wood right now to knock on knock on it. But it is going very well for our partners who have joined us today. We are partnering with the African American Leadership Forum, ALF, as well as ACER, the African Career Education Resources, Inc. We're partnering with 2 chapters of the Links, which is a national women's group. So we're excited about those partnerships. We've pretty much got the program lined up. Kennedy Hurst will be our featured soloist during that day. We will hear from various legislators, and I'm going to turn it over to Theo in 1 second. But in addition to the legislators, we will also have a few community representatives. So we will have Wentana Melican, I think is how you pronounce her name, who will be discussing voting rights, which is a big issue right now, with redistricting, and there's a Voting Rights Act that's coming up on the table and some other things. And then we're hoping to have Khalees speak, and Devin, you know Khalees pretty well, on the African American Family Preservation Act, child welfare piece of it. And then Reverend Babington Johnson, who runs the Stair Step Foundation, has agreed to be on the agenda. The MC, again, it's kind of been going a little bit back and forth. I was hoping that Councilmember Dukes was going to be back in town, but he's going to be in Senegal. How dare he? But that's going to be an amazing trip. So I'm excited for you. But Deacon, Corey Boyd, and he always puts Deacon out there, who is with the governor's office. He is the public liaison for the African heritage community. So I'm excited to have him. He will be amazing. And then Theo can talk about all who we have confirmed, which is a good lineup.
All right, thank you, Linda. So in terms of speakers and folks who have accepted our invitation, House members, we have Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, Representative Agbaje, Representative Clardy, Representative Frazier, Representative Hollins, Representative Hussein, and Majority Leader Long. And in the Senate, we are expecting that Senate President Bobby Joe Champion is tentative, so we'll wait word on that. But we received acceptance from Senator Fate and Senator Umuva Beton, and we also will have dignitaries from State Enterprise, from the Minnesota Department of Health. The Commissioner Cunningham will be attending and speaking, and also Attorney General Ellison will also be there speaking. And I believe we have Lieutenant Governor Flanagan and attending and speaking as well. And I think that's the current status of our list.
So we need the council members, whoever is in town, we need you all to show up and show out and be host and greet people and engage people and be winning, and we need all of that. So if you're in town, I know we have quite a few council members who are kind of out of commission right now, and we will be missing you, Crawford, Councilmember Crawford. I know that you won't be able to come down this time, but yeah, so whosoever will, we will be happy to see your faces in the place.
Great. So, yeah, what questions you have, council member? I just want to add to Theo has sent out some very good information that we can pass along to the community. So if you check your email today, right? Just today, there's some great information that we want to pass along. So let's do that. Make sure that we can get the kind of attendance we need. What we're looking at least 100, 150, 200, 300.
Well, hey, we would love 300. Think big. That's my motto. If you think like
Bring it
this,
on,
maybe
bring it
you'll
on.
get this, or
Bring it
maybe
on.
you'll get this. Oh,
Bring it on,
I did forget to mention that we have invested in quite a bit of marketing for this venture, because this is a big deal. To, our community wants to hear from our legislators, our Black legislators in particular. But you'll hear us on KMOJ. We'll be in the Spokesman, Sahan Journal, my chalet. Yep. Okay. So I think Ash just said the lieutenant governor is confirmed. So that's
Oh,
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah. So you will, the internet radio, Twin Cities, Black Radio Network. And so one of the things too is we wanted to make sure that we're reaching our people in a variety of places, and also that we're supporting Black media. It's so important because usually their budgets are zero to negative. And when we have a few dollars that we can use, we should do that. And especially if it's for something as important as this. You can't see, but Jude has his hand up.
Yeah. Jude, Councilmember Jude.
Yes, I don't know, Edie, if you guys reached out to CCX TV in this our area. They broadcast around the northwest suburb with a lot of our people around this area. So,
Can you repeat that?
CCX TV.
CCX TV.
Yeah.
I'll check on it tomorrow.
Okay. So yeah, anything that we need a public engagement or announcement, it's good to include them because they're the major local TV around this area, and they're very popular in the community.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that.
CCX, yeah.
CCX TV. Okay, and then Ash put just because I was running off some names, she put the information in the chat. So.
Okay, great. All right, we're on course with that, and we're looking forward to it coming up in a couple of weeks.
Next Friday.
Next Friday.
Next Friday. I
Friday.
know where you all will be next Friday, or I'm coming to your house.
As a matter of fact, council members, we coming next Friday, we need to be there earlier than 2:00, right? About noon or so, to have some engagement and just interact before the actual program starts.
Right. There is a private reception for the partners that's being hosted by ALF. And then also Acer is contributing to that as well.
Yeah.
So if you see some real food, it's not because the council did that, because we know what we're allowed to have, right? It's because we do have partners who will be actually pitching in, and I can't say enough about them. We meet every Friday at 8 a.m. and they have been on the calls along with Ash. So thank you. And the Theo, I think, has popped in a couple times as well. So I want to thank them publicly in this particular forum.
Great. Great. Okay. All right, let's move along to our next item here. If there's no other questions or comments or concern, the next item here is organization engagement. Board members' response. I added that to the agenda just as a way of informing us again that we did pass a motion to resume our engagement with our communities and commissioners. And what happened was that we asked that we each submit names of organization coming from board members. So I just want to bring that up again and maybe put some deadline to it. I don't know where we are with that, whether it's 100%, I doubt that, but that would be good. And just as a reminder, if you have organizations in mind that you feel will be beneficial to come to our meetings and let's talk and engage them, hear what they do, how we can help them, it will be very, very worth our while to do so, because that definitely would be as part of our community engagement effort, not only just having that engagement, but being able to see how much help we can provide to these organizations. So I want to remind us to do that. Councilmember Dukes, you're heading to Africa. Is that your first time? No.
This is our third year going on this mission trip.
Oh,
And so it's
okay.
just, it's 8 days, but we do so much. There's about
Yeah.
7 different communities that we'll be supporting there. So really happy to do this third year. I think I'm hooked now. I don't know if I can stop.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So just as a reminder again, let's get that information to Ash. What do you think she would do with a time frame? Because we'll talk a little bit on the agenda here about schedule. We're looking at starting around March or April or so. So we need to get that information in so that staff can begin to contact these organizations and set up time frames. So I think we should just put a time frame to it that we to get all the information from board members. Is that fair enough to say? Yes. We're coming at the end of February. Was that a good time to end February to have that so by our March meeting? And staff, you can tell me whether that's enough time to do that or whether we should do it earlier. I just want to put a deadline to it to see where we're at with that, and then we can begin to start, inviting these folks out there, contacting them.
Yeah,
What's your thought?
I think it's fair to give people a few weeks. We do have one request in, and actually it's from an assistant director who is working on the implementation of the new office that Devon's group is a part of, and Elizabeth and Theo, I'm trying to think of her last name off the top of my head.
Ebot.
Ebot or something, yeah. And so she did want to come speak to us. So we could just in general plan out March ourselves. And then I know we talked about the Promise Act,
Yes.
having somebody come in. So yeah, so we can figure out for March and then have the council members by the March meeting. They need to have some information, and then we can take it from there with planning for the April meeting.
Okay. That sounds good. Fair enough. Any thoughts, any questions, council members? That sounds good. So we will use the March meeting, by the March meeting, to have a deadline to follow up with that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next thing, yes. The next thing on the agenda here is we did talk about, the question came about, are we a governing board or a working board? And I want to bring this up so that we have in our minds at least some understanding. Oh, okay. Some understanding of where we are in terms of how do we operate. Okay. Now, it may have been in the past one way, and maybe it changed or so, but we are looking into per statute, basically how we're defined. My understanding in the past months or so through some engagement that the executive director had gone through is that we have been operating basically as a governing board, not a working board. However, we continue to encourage board members, as we did, that if there are some areas of passion that you are involved with, right, and you want to be a part of that, definitely we're not going to stop you from doing that, right? Because the difference between the two is one is more policy driven, where we are making decisions, and then that's carried out by the executive team that does the day-to-day affairs, as opposed to we actually getting down and doing that as well. But I think it's important that as we understand operating as a governing board, we have that opportunity as board members. No obligation, there's nothing mandatory about you doing a particular thing or being a particular area at a particular time. But I think it lies within yourselves to figure that out, how you want to be engaged in the issues that we are presented with. So let me know your thoughts. I know Vice Chair Crawford, you raised that issue. So any thoughts? What do you think?
Chair, Commissioners, I think you're spot on, Chairman Doe. I think from what they say, from a little group, a lot is asked. And for us to do this work, our community members are asking a lot from us. So our passions lie in all other areas. But when we can come together and work on maybe one or two issues, I think that allows us to go deep on an issue rather than to go real thin and wide. So I think this form of bringing it forward and then maybe coming up with a group or a task group that would move that agenda forward is a great way to go.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Any other comment? Yeah.
Jude, I think Jude might have his hand raised.
Jude, Councilmember Nadi? I didn't see that.
No, it's old one.
Oh, it's old.
Oh, that's an old one. And I'm raising my hand.
Okay, we'll come to you. I just want to mention, like Councilmember Nadi, I don't think he will even say anything to this because he's just always, involved in the areas that he's so passionate about. He's always there. So that's good. And even if you're not, it doesn't mean that, your input on this council is just as important, because this is where we make the decisions as far as how the council operates generally. But we appreciate that. So Linda, did you want to say yes?
Yes, I
Okay.
did. So one of the things too that came up at the executive council meeting was the question of funding and can we go after grants and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I did find out that yes, we can. And that is a role that a governing board can play.
Yeah.
So if we have people who are interested in doing that work, the staff can partner with them to figure out how to make that happen. And then the other piece of it is, as a governing board, of course, you have the governance and making sure that we're staying on track with the strategic plan and the overall financial health of the agency. But then also, you can just get in kind of where you want to fit in and be in the community. That to me is a big role that a governing board can still play. Be in the community, in the spaces where you're in, be proud of CMAH, get people engaged. We do still have, or we will have 3, I think, openings on the board. And so that's another space. Talk to people about getting engaged on the board, Joseph and Devin, and let's think about that. Let's think how you guys can be influential in getting candidates to apply, even if you don't want to get down and dirty in the nitty gritty day to day. And some of you do, and we welcome that, of course. But no, you're under no obligation. But I think being a cheerleader champion for the board is an excellent space for a governing board to be in.
Yes, thank you very much. That's a very good point. And also, like Lena just mentioned, we do have some openings on the board, and we want to make sure that we can get those filled. So definitely sharing that information, finding folks who are passionate with this kind of work to get involved will be very helpful for this board to move forward as we move forward. Okay, any other questions or concern with that? I think one other piece is that I know we have talked about in the past, but I'll just bring it up as far as any opportunity. Admin usually conduct an onboarding orientation for board members. I'm thinking, Linda, probably when we get new members, right, after that's coming up, then we can look at making sure that happens so everyone can understand as far as roles and responsibilities on the board can go through that onboarding process. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Moving along, I probably let you all go early today, but to new business. To new business, the first thing on the new business I added is a resolution to act during crisis affecting people of African heritage. Now, of course, we did have a good discussion during our executive meeting on this topic, and I thought I would bring it out here to the full board to get your view as a way of starting a conversation where we can have a discussion, basically, that will end in passing a resolution for this council. I don't believe in the past we had anything laid out to say this is how the council reacts when something happens in terms of crisis. An example would be like the pandemic that happened a few years ago. We found ourselves in many spaces at that time as council members and juggling, and there were, folks were asking, so what is the council doing? What is our role? How are we engaged in the community? And then a lot of work was going on at that time to see who was doing what, you know. So we didn't have a defined process or procedure or stakeholders directly that we could just go to and say this is how we would react in times of crisis. So what I'm bringing to this for this discussion to hear from you is that if we can have a discussion around this and develop and that will culminate into a resolution for the council so that going forward in times of crisis, not necessarily, pandemic, but any kind of crisis, how will we execute that process to get our involvement? Okay. I'd like to hear from you, basically, council members, whether you see as fit to do or not. Let's have a debate around that. Let's come to a conclusion before we even do a resolution or come to drafting one per se. But I think it will be important as a council to have a way to react to crisis that is very clear moving forward. So let me know your thoughts. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts around that?
Thank you, Chair Dole. This is
Yes.
Councilmember Dukes. I will jump in and just say, I think, when there is crisis, part of our first responsibility is to lift up the voices of the people we represent. And so as part of that process, how do we, gather voices and perspectives on things that are happening and how it's impacting the community? I can say one of the things that, really, I guess, concerns me even about the pandemic is, coming out of the pandemic, there are a lot of monies that were allocated and that were supposed to be going to communities. And, in terms of, the speed that and the urgency in which those monies were deployed was a little slow, especially in our community. One example, I'm in early childhood, is, early childhood scholarships got a lot of money that was allocated, and many families still have not received that funding. And much of it is because of, systemic issues. And so how do we, raise the voices of families that need to go to work every day, still can't afford to send their children to early childhood centers or have, quality child care, and there's funding that's available, but it's not in their hands. And so those are the kinds of things that, we need to be lifting up those voices, when, crises do happen, and especially where there's resources that are there to support the crisis.
Right,
Mm.
right, right.
Mm.
No, that's a very good point, because if we if we're able to predetermine what's the steps to take towards that, I think that will go a long way in how we can pursue the help that those organizations would need during these times. But I think that's a very, very good point you made, Councilmember Dukes. Um, any other thoughts, Councilmember Nadi, Councilmember Vice Chair Crawford?
I love that idea that
Mhm.
Councilmember Dukes brought up about re-looking, maybe a 30, 60, 90-day look back when we have issues that are raised. What is our follow-up to see if that issue is showing up once again? Do we then put efforts behind that issue? I think often in our work, we're the old vaudeville, we're catching spinning plates all the time, right? And some of those plates are going to crash, but the ones that are most important, such as unmet promises that were made and the money is there, we have the ear of the governor to ask that question. Where did that funding go?
Right.
And then to get it back to our community so we can show that we asked the question, this was the answer we received. What's the next step?
All right. And very good. And the other thing too, and we're just kind of brainstorming here. And the other thing too is when we look at our community, how do we define specific stakeholders to approach in time of crisis? Like, I mean, which groups do we go to say, okay, here's now we're in crisis. Let's call these folks to the table. Let's figure a way who follow up on what. What do we do? Because again, during that experience, it was terrible during COVID. There were times it was so confusing, very confusing. Even when the pandemic started, there were some reports that said that, oh, it didn't affect Black people. Only other people affected, and then all of a sudden that changed, and then it became the worst. And as usual, people of African heritage always, we got the brunt of it, whether it was economically or all of the mentally, whatever that was. We had the worst of it, and then we had to work with different agency, like I think how they call it when they were doing the vaccination on wheels. That came about because people didn't want to go to do vaccination, so they had to take it to them. But that came out of many discussions that Black people were not just going, and they were being affected. So how do we make sure that they are the ones who are receiving the help? Councilmember Dukes, see your hand up.
Yes,
And
sure, Bill.
Councilmember Nadi
I
after.
just wanted to add one more example in that, a lot of people don't know or not talking about the fact that we have a current crisis in our schools, and our schools are not safe. Our children are going to school every day in fear, and there's no learning that is happening. They're being forced to fight. If they don't fight, they're being videotaped and put on social media. They call it the fight page. And so our schools are in trouble and they need help. We have teachers that are, refusing to show up in some ways or either quitting. And so there's a gap in terms of educators in the schools. So there's just this, when you talk about crisis, like it extends beyond, an event to more of a systemic thing that is happening and is persistent in our community from South Minneapolis to Brooklyn Park and probably everywhere in between. Like this is a huge crisis, and I don't hear many people talking about it at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
But this
that's
is just another example.
right. That's a very good example. So the continuation of the crisis too, that we have to find a way of how do we keep abreast with that, and what can we do to help that. Council Member Nadi.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with what Councilman Duke said and the other contributors. So I think we should layer our response into different steps and categories. What if it's like if it's immediate, a response, then without wasting too much time, we know exactly what to do. Like when George Floyd was murdered, I saw it very early in the morning. I looked, I checked Facebook. I didn't see any report. I called Justin, our executive director, and I said, "Did you hear this?" He said, "Yes, he heard. He was still getting information." I was really confused. I didn't know what to do. So things like that. If we have a kind of something that will give us some direction before the dust settles, that would be fine. I don't think we should have all the solutions today, but just something to work on in the future. That's one. And then two, something that's systematic, just like Councilmember Duke said, that has been ongoing for a long time. Like even when the pandemic started, it started gradually and it became full-blown crisis. And the impact is still there up to today, 4 years in making. So how then do we respond to such systemic issues? That should be one layer. And then we should also look at internal action that we can do as a board. So within us, like maybe something quick response, maybe interview or letter, or what a council member can say with regard to a particular crisis. And then we also have an external, like what can we do with others, like systemic issues. It may not be something we can handle alone, but we'll look at other players in the field, other stakeholders, and other partners, or even people we can escalate to, like the governor's office, or other places as the case may be. So I think we need to have a kind of mapping, because we live in crisis in our community. So if I have like kind of mapping, so layering it and how we can respond, how we can collaborate, the type of crisis, and whether it's immediate or long term. So I think we need to do a kind of mapping.
Right. Oh, you're right on point. You're right on point there. That helps the discussion very much. Council Member Dahir, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so what I wanted to say was I think there should be a process that we have that kind of um, delineates between the different crises. So there are crises that require immediate responses, immediate actions. There are some that are a bit longer. So if you look at the George Floyd incident, that is something that I would like for us, God forbid it happens again, but if something of that nature does happen, we should have an outlined process for how we're going to respond. Could there be maybe an emergency executive meeting? Could there be an email bulletin that goes out to all the council members before a statement's put out, and see if anyone takes issues with it? And then for longer term ones, obviously those would need more planning and more discussions. But I think that all is a part of, I guess, growing our social media presence as well. Like today, I saw that our we're live streaming on Facebook, which is great. That's something I welcome and I like. But I kind of would like to see us, engage more on the social media front to keep people kind of engaged with us. Maybe not daily tweets, but every couple days, give people updates, maybe remind them of initiatives and things we're doing, and kind of get the word out. I think we might have a branding issue because I still feel like a lot of people don't know we exist. And I think even myself as a council member, the onus is on me as well. I think we should be evangelizing like what we do, who we are, and what we can contribute. I think that creates for more meaningful relationships that are built. That way, we don't even have to really figure out who to reach out to in the community, but we've already established it because we have a presence and people are reaching out to us like, hey, this is going on. I really want to weigh in which ways can we help. So I guess that's kind of my piece there.
No, great. That's great contribution to the discussion. I think we are heading in the right direction because if we can do that, put together a plan, a process in place that will definitely help us as a council and the staff too, in terms of what action to take when there's crisis or ongoing crisis. How do we follow up? So it can be very clear. But again, the goal here that we're looking at, Councilmember Ju, did you just put your hand up, or that was before?
Yes, yeah. So just a quick
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, just a quick note here. Like these our response to crisis as we're discussing it here. I think this is going to reignite our issue based committees we had before, because some of the things we're discussing here are relating to some of the things we have in that committee, or I don't know exactly, I think it's issue based committee or reports or something. So if we, from the discussion, just to see what are the things that will be real crisis that we need to focus on, and then what are the things that will flow to the issue-based discussion we had like last 2 years, because it's still important. If we be able to, those systemic issues, if we have a particular direction and focus on them, that will help us as well as they came up in this our current discussion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Great. I like that because, again, the goal of this is that the council, we would put this into a resolution, definitely would draft a resolution in this regard to indicate exactly how we would proceed. And of course, the details will be in, right? The details will be physically determined once we have that resolution. And for the most part, I just want to recognize the fact that we have one of the best legislative director on our council to help us, to guide us in terms of crafting. I see you smiling. In terms of crafting a good resolution that this council can pass, so that we will look at our work and follow through based on the fact that we do have a plan in place to act, or action plan, when it comes to crisis that affect people of African heritage here in Minnesota. Yes, I'm excited about that. I will, and if any one of you have, input to this, I'm sure it will be helpful to start a draft of that. And what we'll do is that we will do a draft. We'll circulate that draft to each council members, take a look at it, review it. And we can, suggest whatever it should be. But let's have that as some working document to come to a final document, and then bring that draft down, even if it means coming back and we can do a discussion more or debate on the issue on how it should be. But we should have something to go by. And Theo definitely, I'm sure, will be willing to help us with that. Linda, I'm not taking Theo away from you. I'm just saying that, we just
You
need him
you
to
you
do
could never do that. And the work
Can
that
never-
you discussed is my work too. So yeah, no, I'm sure. Well, Theo is the right person. He is our legislative guru, and definitely very strong writer. The other thing I was going to say is that the staff, and I'll take lead on this piece of it, not the resolution. We'll leave that for Theo, but just in terms of figuring out what that should look like. I have taken notes, and I agree with everything that was said, but taking notes in terms of coming up with a crisis management plan, and one that not only the council members are engaged in, but the staff, because there are different things that need to happen by different people. And so I pretty much have a good idea as to what this should look like. So I will take on and circle back to different people and shoot that out to you. Well, I'll have it ready for the next meeting, and then you guys can provide input and we can just go from there.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. I think I will leave it at this if there's no other comments, questions or concerns regarding that, but it is exciting for me that we do this as a council, and each of your contribution is highly, highly appreciated. And even with those who are not here, we will pass that information as well so they can also provide some input to this. Yes, Linda.
I also want to make sure that we recognize what Councilmember Dukes was saying about what's going on in our education system, and that we dig deeper into that. So I will commit having a conversation with Dr. Barrage, seeing what she knows. I'll circle back to you, Councilmember Dukes, and then we'll see, okay, if there's some money, we'll try to figure out where the money went. Where is the money trail? But I just want to make sure too that as issues are brought up to the board, that we do come up with a plan for digging into them. So I'll commit to us doing that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, great. All right, with no other questions, if there's none, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is our speaker schedule for the next meeting. And we started to talk about that a little bit. Again, getting speakers to the council takes a lot of work, and staff will kind of maybe talk about that a little bit more. But let's see, for the first, at least if we begin in March or April, and Linda, you help me with that, won't be the best month to have our first speaker and who that will be, so that we can start working on that. That would be great.
Yeah. So if for March, if we can see if Elizabeth, and I meant to try to quickly look up her name. Theo, can you help me with that? The woman who is working on the implementation that's being moved, that's being formalized in July, that Devon's group is going up under.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I think it's Ebot or Ebot. She is part of she's an equity officer within the implementation office for the new Department of Children and Families that Mr. Gilchrist was referencing.
Yeah. So if you all are okay with that, because I know she wanted to meet with us as soon as possible. And then maybe, since we'll be talking about her group, maybe Devin might be interested in coming back and talking about his group.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So then we will be good for March. Then.
Okay, and definitely we had talked about one of the things that concerns me too is the Promise Act. We've been passing that information around. We need to let our folks know that they can apply for this. Again, there's money out there, like Councilmember Duke said.
Right.
There's money out there. It has to get to the right people. It has to get to the people who really needs it, right? So we have to make sure that we are providing that information to our community. So if we can get someone, I understand, and Jude, you can help me out too with that the grant actually begins, and Theo, you mentioned that the grants actually begins in April, right? I think April, around there.
Yeah,
so
the notice that we have is in the spring.
In the spring.
Yeah, in the spring. But maybe Councilmember Jude might have more information. But in terms of the notice that we have from the partner organizations that are administering the programs, the grants, the notice is that it will start, it's expectation to start in the spring.
All right. So it would be good to have someone just to talk about how that information is being passed on. Because as I send the information around or meet small business owners, and I ask the question, have you heard about the Promise Act? And most response I get is no. So, and then I pass the information out. So let's help get the word out that people can apply, right? And for the grants that's coming out too, that will be very important because you know how grants are, making sure that they are prepared to submit an application that will be accepted for these grants. So Linda, we can look at that maybe in April or May or whenever that is, so to speak, to get someone from who's managing the Promise Act loans and grants to also come to talk about how that process is going.
For April. I think Natalie Johnson Lee is working in that space for the Neighborhood Development Corp. And she probably would be a good person. I think I'm going to a meeting on Thursday. The Elders Council is having a meeting. I'm double booked, but I wanted to hear what she had to say. But she's a dynamite speaker. So she might be good to bring in. Andre, I don't know if you know of anybody else who's working on that.
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, okay. So we have the Promise Act, the Promise Loan has started. So that one actually started in January. So but that one is bigger pie. That one, the loan is up to I think $1 million. So but it's still good for people to know, especially those who are in commercial space development, which is meant for. So even if we don't have a speaker yet, we can share that in our newsletter just to let them know that that one has started. And then the grant is the one that will be coming pretty soon as well.
Definitely. And council member, we've been sharing, I believe we shared that in a previous newsletter, that the loan, because it began in January. It was open in January for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we can continue to repeat those messages, those posts to the community.
Yes. Yeah, I would just implore as just council members in your own spaces where you are. I'm sure you interact with business, small business owners. Just mention it, just throw it out there. Did you hear about this? If not, here's some information you can give that they will be able to benefit from. That would be great. Again.
Chair, NDC has been going around since last year to community to talk about this. If it's possible, like ED, as you said, if you make inquiries, they can provide a kind of just information sharing within our community. It could be North Minneapolis or could be in somewhere in St. Paul, but they've been doing that for a while, on their own, and they visit other places depending on the arrangement of the organization they are coming to talk about. So that's something to explore, maybe with other organizations in our community. They can come around and then share the information about that, about the grant, so that people can know beyond the individual coming to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And, and in addition to the Promise Act grant, if we're going through NDC, they might have information about some other grant opportunities too that they have. But yeah, I'll connect with Renee, who heads up NDC, and then I'll see if I can get a hold of Natalie. But we talked, so if we get that done for April, we talked about maybe April being in person. And I love the space where Councilmember Nadi is located. They have a nice size room, and it would be a great space to have an in-person meeting talking about grants. Yeah, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds very, very interesting to do. Yeah, pretty be engaging. I can't wait till we get some time to meet in person again. Okay, that is great. Any further questions or comments on this topic?
I would like so that's March, April. I would like to see if maybe we can get a couple thoughts for May and June before we move on to the next topic.
That's good.
If anybody has any thoughts.
I'll always go to either Department of Health or DHS, something around those groups. I don't know if we can get some follow-up information. But like we said too, is basically once we get those information, how do we conduct all of the follow-up? So I don't know whether the Department of Health will be one that we can re-engage again. What do you think?
Well, we had Brooke come last year. Brooke, Dr. Brooke Cunningham, and she is now the commissioner for the Department of Health.
Oh, she is. Okay.
So, okay, I think we can, a couple of other suggestions. Department of Department of Employment and Economic Development. They have a lot. Most of the grants are domiciled in Deed, so they do a lot. So it's good to hear about some of the opportunities, especially in the workforce development area and also economic development as well. So $1.8 billion for this biennium is passing through Deed. So I think it's important to hear again from them. So another area that I discovered during the Dr. Luther King holiday planning, the Department of Equity, Opportunity, and Access, being headed by Dr. Barrage. So part of the tweak they have in that in that space, or part of the what they do is to partner with organizations and communities to bring what the state is doing to the community and also hear from the people and take it back to the state. So I think our office is very important in terms of equity and collaboration. And if she can, share with us opportunities and how we can be maybe a hub to connect our community to her, or vice versa. I think it's important to have such a collaboration to know what's going on and what she can do. And she's very vibrant in reaching out to the community. So I think those areas, health is also important. Deed, her office, I think they are critical areas that can help our community.
Okay. Did that help, Linda?
Yes, actually. And once you said Deed, I was thinking, even for April, to see if somebody from Deed can come out along with somebody who can speak on the Promise Act from NDC. But then, yes, Dr. Barrage for May. And then June, Theo, I was thinking maybe we could do a legislative debrief. Would that be enough time to, get some people before they go on vacation? Or do we need to wait for July for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it's planning it ahead and then, reaching out to legislators, that, sort of timing that for when the session ends, like getting a hold of them. So that we can get them on board for the June session. I think Devin had a suggestion about MDH, Office of African American Health, that newly created office.
Yeah, Devin, let me see here. Go ahead, Devin. Did you want to say something?
So that was it. That was
okay.
it. I just think given it's a new office that's newly created, this is a new thing that we're doing. It'd be good at some point in time to reach out to that person. And I know just keeping it very transparent. It's a younger woman, and I think just as people of color in state offices, it's also important to find allies and people who can help support you too. So that's all I had to say.
Yeah,
great.
Well, that's
Thank
good.
you. Thank you for that contribution. Okay. Great. All right. So let's move along and into our staff reports at this time. A lot of things going on that I'm sure we'll have a good report here to hear from our legislative director first. Legislative and policy update.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one moment here. Yeah, so let me just do a quick overview here of some of policy initiatives, elections and voting. Want to just flag that we're continuing our work with Common Cause Minnesota, and there's some democratic reform work groups that we've been engaging with through that organization, particularly around the focus on expanding power and representation of marginalized communities in our election systems. I think Councilmember Dahir is on. So I wanted to flag that that if there's interest from council members in that area, that there's definitely some work that the coalition of organizations are trying to push through around that issue. Also on education, again, we continue our work with the other ethnic councils around increased teachers of color. Last year, major win in that bill initiative, but there was one particular program in the higher education domain that didn't make it through in 2023. And so the 2024 bill is really focused on that aspiring teachers of color grants program, a very important initiative or provision within the broader ITCA package. And then also we're engaging community constituent organizations around housing. We organized a meeting with the East Metro Civic Alliance and NAACP and Minnesota Housing to discuss a proposal around establishing a program for African American workforce utilization and affordable homeownership out of Minnesota Housing. And so that idea is in the works. We are engaging Minnesota Housing on that issue in terms of thinking about whether the budget that was passed in 2023, there's some means of really crafting targeted programming for Black workforce, Black workforce participation in housing, and also a focus on affordable housing, which is a crisis in the sort of broader housing instability problems in Minnesota. Whether that can be crafted out of what the historic funding that was passed last year, or we might need new legislation this year. So those are talks that are ongoing in that space. And then finally, the major thing is our main priority. I should have started with the fact that yesterday was the first day of the 2024 session, as you all know. And over the weekend, we issued a special bulletin focused on the African American Family Preservation Act, which is our top priority for this session. And we've discussed this previously, that part of the challenge that's in front of us with this bill and with most bills is to find ways to bring different segments of our community together to work together to address, in this case, the problem of child welfare disparities. And so we have, and this is the memo that the chair referenced that I sent out this morning, and also in that bulletin, 4 main resources at this time that we want council members and community members to share with their organizations and their networks. And I'll just go over those. We have a petition that calls on Minnesota leaders to prioritize, to pass, and to sign the AFPA bill, right? And so really focus on work in that area. So please sign that petition and also share it with your networks. Also, we have a policy alert that gives a sort of general overview, some details about the problem of child welfare disparities as they impact our communities, our children, how the bill responds to that problem, and also some ideas about what community members can do to really stand up for our children and to push Minnesota to address this issue. And then we have reference to flyer for the legislative training this week that we will partner with Village Arms focused on legislative process and also how to move a community priority forward in the legislative process using AFPA as an example. And really critically, next week is African Heritage Day on the Hill on the 23rd, and that's also an opportunity there for community to really engage legislators on child well-being issues and other community priorities. So please share those materials, and really the work right now is to really recruit community members across the differences in our communities to this campaign. So I'll take questions.
So when you say recruit, does that include opportunity for community members to do presentations or get involved that way or something like that as well?
Absolutely. So I could say to you that in those documents, and the document that has some ideas about ways that community can really stand up for our children to push for our state to address this issue, and to continue the kind of good work that Devin is doing in government, and that folks like the Village Arms and Khalees, et cetera, are doing outside of government, is one, to contact your legislators, right? Tell them about the importance of this issue, and that that we need to pass this bill. It's long overdue. Two, to sign that petition, right? To sign the petition. Three is to educate friends and family, right? And use, and you can contact us, or use resources that are at your disposal to really educate your community about this issue. And another, just the one-on-one conversations are important. And another thing to do, I mean, as you're saying, in terms of presentation, is to plan to testify about the importance of this issue, or especially if you have lived experience with with engaging child protective services, like to really come forward and tell your story and the kinds of things that you want changed. And then, I mean, more broadly, I mean, to have beyond just the one-on-one conversations, which are critical, but to have community conversations. I mean, to coordinate and host community conversations, and us, we at CMAH, some of our partners, NAACP, Village Arms, the legislators, will be able to really support events of that nature, with experts, with legislators who really will be able to come forward to speak about the issue.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's good to know. Yeah. There's a question in the chat. What's the bill number or the Senate file number?
Question. I will put that in the chat.
Okay.
And it's also in those documents that we have out, but I'll put that information in the chat.
Yep. And Theo,
one thing in relation to that is that over the in the fall and the summertime, we have been working with partners on revising the language that was introduced. So this bill was introduced in 2023, and we've been working with partners on revising the language to address concerns about the previous language of the bill. So there is an amendment, a DEI amendment, a revised copy of the bill that will be, Senator Champion presented on this last Friday at a really Champion and Village Arms presented on this last Friday at a task force on child protection. And the plan is that now that the legislative session has started, the really important push is for committees to hold hearings and for us to get the opportunity to move the new language forward.
Okay.
Sorry, Linda.
Linda?
Oh, no, that's okay. I was going to say, maybe we could share that information with our guest, Joseph Waters. He was the one that asked about the bill number.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm sure he would want to be engaged in the process.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah.
And Theo's been doing a phenomenal job on trying to get this bill moved forward. He's been all over it, working with the NAACP and Representative Agbaje and others to really help to move this forward. So I just wanted to acknowledge his work in this
Yeah.
space.
And Joseph is still asking, can you talk about how amendments work? Terms on, I said right,
Yes.
on Thursday, he said? Maybe
Oh,
briefly.
absolutely. Okay, at the training. Okay.
Legislative
Yes, please.
training.
Thank you, Joseph. Please, welcome to. In fact, Joseph, I mean, I hold you as a dear friend and a veteran in this game. So, we will be talking about that together. So,
Right.
absolutely.
All right. So there's a lot of excitement that this is going to pass.
Yes,
We're
that's
trying.
the bringing folks together is what's important at this juncture. I mean, to be full transparent. I mean, I think that's the work right now. And so all the council members, you know, it is a call out that we have to bring constituents in our network together, and then also to engage different stakeholders in the policymaking process.
Right. Is there a timeline listed in what you sent as well, as far as timeline?
Yes, that's a good question. There are legislative deadlines. So to the extent that this bill is considered a policy bill and not a finance bill, then there's I'll get the exact date. It's not in front of me right now, but it's sort of mid-March or March 22nd deadline for committees to prioritize giving the bill a hearing and moving forward. So that's why in that endorsement form, that petition, you know, what we're really calling for is for the Minnesota legislature to prioritize the bill, right, immediately right now in February or early March, for the bill to get hearings in the House and the Senate, and then we move forward from there, in terms of moving for passage and getting the governor to sign it.
Okay, great. All right, that's helpful. Any questions? Any more questions, concerns, comments? Okay, next update, the office manager. Ash.
Alrighty, thank you for your patience again. Just takes me quite a bit of bandwidth to run this out of my home. So over January and into February, I've been supporting with Day on the Hill event coordination. So we've been working again with the Minnesota Historical Society, which supports us with equipment and event personnel. I've been working with the facilities department to reserve the necessary spaces, get support which will support the event itself at the rotunda, and also the private reception for partners. And then I've also been working on contracts for our photographer, our videographer, our performer, as Executive Director Sloan mentioned earlier, Kennedy Hurst. And then also we're looking into ASL interpretation as well. So very excited to get that off the ground. And then I've also been supporting Theo with the rollout of the African American Family Preservation Act, getting that into the hands of the public. So we sent out a special bulletin this past Sunday, and then we're working on getting the forms out on social media, and we'll also be running an ad for the African American Family Preservation Act in the Sahan Journal after the Day on the Hill passes, because we purchased an ad slot for 30 days. And then I've also been working on onboarding the policy interns, one of which is with us tonight. Hi, Meet. And we've been working specifically on communications and social media. So they're helping me do research for the weekly bulletin. And we're also going to start posting on social media in the coming weeks to Councilmember Dahir's point. And then also working on supporting with the legislative training. So created a registration form, replying back to registrants as they have questions, and then also getting that out to the public. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? As we can tell, we got a short staff, so to speak, but they're doing so much work. And, we have to give it out to them. Thank you so much for your hard work. Theo and Ash and Linda and Hyman is the intern. Welcome, Hyman. And I also see here Michelle is with us. Welcome. Okay. So let's move on to Executive Director.
Sure. I just want to say to Ash, they said, oh, that's all. Ash has been working, and I want to go on record saying that I'm not having them work all hours of the night on the weekend, but they are dedicated to the work. They understand how important this work is, and they have been putting in some time. So I just want to also publicly thank Ash for just going above and beyond. I couldn't have asked for more, and I have such a great staff. And then the interns, wow. We have some great interns. We are so blessed to have them. They've come in and they've just started working. And Hamanat, I don't know if you can be on camera right quick. If not, don't worry about it. I just wanted people to see your face if you're able to say hello.
Hi. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
So they've just jumped in and they're all excited, and so I'm just excited to have them be a part of the work that we're doing. We already talked about Day on the Hill. I'm the point person for that. A lot of wonderful things happening with that. Finally, our community engagement and legislative policy director positions. I helped get those posted and work with HR on those. And I have candidates. I'm looking through candidates, which we will be interviewing shortly. Very excited about that. Worked with the new interns. Did a lot of work on the MLK, and I want to just thank those of you who came out. Councilmember Crawford, Councilmember Doe, Councilmember Nadi. So thank you for coming out and participating in that work. We were successful in, somebody mentioned branding, so getting the word out as to who we were, tabling, having great conversations, collecting data. People were interested in getting our bulletin, and that's what those things are designed to do. It's to make those connections so that we can later do some follow-up and make sure that people understand who we are. And before I go on to thank you again, Theo, for your work on the African American Family Preservation Act. And I just want to call out Councilmember Lee, who is not here today, who has been doing a fantastic job getting engaged in this space, coming to meetings, and she also represents us on a committee that Devin runs regarding child welfare, and she is very passionate about this space. So I just wanted to call her out. Sometimes we don't call out people if we don't see their faces, but I'm calling her out because I just remembered. So also just going and doing the standard monthly meetings, the Governor's Workforce Development Board, where I lead racial equity, Minority Business Equity Coalition. I went to a housing forum in Brooklyn Center. Mayor Winston, our council member, was on that panel along with the mayor from Brooklyn Center and commissioner in that area. Partnering with MNJRC, Justin's group, as a part of a committee, Justice for All committee. And thank you, Chair Doe, for coming out to the event that we hosted. We were a host, but we didn't have to really do much but show up, which was cool. But that event was on Thursday, and they had a panel with Senator Umu Verbatim and I'm trying to think of, help me, Chair Doe. Who else was on the panel? But they had a great panel talking about public safety. Frazier, Representative
Frazier.
Frazier was on there. So it was, yeah, it was amazing. But the Justice for All Coalition, there's probably about 15, 20 different groups that are part of that. And most of those groups have various public safety bills that they're trying to move forward. So we are coming together as a coalition saying, hey, here's who we support. So I'll make sure that you guys get a copy of that. So all of those are things that we've talked about, like banning no-knock warrants, gun control, things that our community has said that they wanted. So I'll make sure you get a copy of that. I've been engaged regarding the Emmett Till law was just passed. The bill was just passed about providing funding for individuals who have been traumatized by various incidents, whether it's hate crimes or murder or whatever it is. And so that finally passed. And so they contacted me. I'm not sure if it's the opioid recovery unit, but that group that works in that space contacted me and wanted some input as to how do we roll this out to make sure that the Black community gets information on it. So spend some time with them. And of course, me and Theo have been like two peas in a pod regarding, African American family preservation and housing and things like that. Been working in the voting rights space. And so that's kind of where I have been, and just, just miscellaneous meetings. But just trying to make sure that Day on the Hill is successful, and that we can drive that African American family preservation, housing, the voting, and staying on top of affirmative action, some of those spaces that are a little broader, but so necessary that we are at the table. And anytime that there are other issues that you want us to lift up, it wasn't at the last meeting, but the previous meeting, we showed the priorities that the council was engaged in. Anytime there's something else you want to lift up, please feel free to share that with us. But then if you do lift it up, we're going to expect you to partner with us, because, that's how that goes. You know how it is when you were in school. If you ask the question, then you get put on the committee, right? Is that how that goes? So we're doing that. And so right now, like I said, I'm looking through resumes. We'll be doing interviewing. And once we get people on board in those African immigrant spaces in particular, that's when more of the work of creating that summit will happen. I know it has come up, but I wanted to make sure we had our people in position in order for them to be able to have some input in that space. So that's it. But again, I just want to say kudos to the team. They have been on it, and I'm just proud to be leading them, and proud to be a part of this council. I think we are making a difference, and people have acknowledged that. Some people don't know us, that's true, but some people do know of the work, and I'm just, asking the council members to just continue on, spread the word, bring the issues forward, and get engaged in the work that you want to see, because we're all coming from various communities. And so what do we want to see in our people? I go to church in North Minneapolis, so I've been on the corner with public safety, so I see what needs to be done. And so it's up to us to do that. So that's it. That concludes my report for today.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we want to thank you too for the hard work that you're doing to make sure that things are happening. Definitely. And I like the point you made that we what we want to see, we should bring forward, and let's deal with it, and let's see how as a council we can help move that forward. Definitely. Linda, I know we did talk about meeting in person, but I had a note here but I think you addressed that regarding the Broken Park. Just a follow up from the last meeting. We haven't touched base with them yet on that, but we're looking forward to doing that, right?
Yeah. Well, we have actually.
We have? Okay.
We have,
That's good.
I went to, I forgot to mention. So Brooklyn Park Mayor Hollis Winston, our council member, had an open house event to discuss what's going on in Brooklyn Park and how they're trying to be a tech hub, and there's some other things. And so I did go to that, and I did have a conversation with the woman that's running the space. And I also talked to Councilmember Nadi, who happens to have an office in that location. And of course, he was at the meeting. I mean, he's everywhere. I mean, I pop up, it's like, there's Councilmember Nadi. So that's kind of fun for me. But did have a conversation, and they would be happy to have us out there. So I just need to connect with Councilmember Nadi because it is a membership-based center, I think. And so I think you have to go through one of the members, but we'll work out the details. And I'm pretty sure if the space is available, that we will be able to get it. So.
Okay, great. All right, thank you for answering that. What questions do you have for our dynamic ED? Any questions? Comments? All right. Like I said, I think I'll let you all go early today. Agenda was not that full, packed as usual. But again, just to reiterate what we talked about as far as the Day on the Hill that's coming up, if you can, let's talk about it. Invite our community out there. If you can come yourself, just to network and hear some of the things that are happening from legislators. Like we learned today, of course, the lieutenant governor will be there, so that's great. Her presence will be good, added advantage for us in terms of visibility and what we're doing. So that's good. Also, definitely, again, we did mention that board members can submit names or organization, and we'll do that. Look up to the next meeting, March, as a deadline. That if you have organizations in mind that you work with or you believe can benefit from engaging with the council to see what work they're doing and how we can help them, that would be very good. And then we talked about, us as a board, as a governing board, yet each of us bring a passion as far as being on this council. And feel free that if you want to pursue a passion in the work that we're doing, definitely we encourage it. It's not mandatory that you be out there, but we encourage it. What's important though is that the decisions that we make that impact the council will be, will go a long way with your help, because that's why you're here. So we want to appreciate each of you and what you bring to the table on this council. As we know, again, there are some openings that are coming up or that are up already. So we want you to encourage others who bring similar passion to this kind of work to join us. We highly appreciate that. The names at least put forward. We don't do the selection, of course, Linda, right? We don't do the selection, but we need people to put in the names so that they can be selected by the governor. And then talking about crisis, how we respond to that, I think was a great discussion. I appreciate all of you. The input you made is essential. Like I said, we want to put this and pass a resolution, so we will work with Theo, our director here, legislative director, to help us craft a resolution. We'll send that out to each board members for your input, and we come back again, just have another round of discussion on what it looks like before we actually put it on the floor for a vote, to make sure that going forward, the steps that we will take, the processes that we institute, the procedures will be in place when something happens. We will be very well aware of what approach to take in times of crisis and the ongoing crises that are consistently, hampering and impacting people with African heritage. But I want to thank all of you actually for being here today. Michelle was on. We want to welcome Michelle to this meeting. She did mention she will be here late.
Hi, everyone.
There she is.
Hi.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for joining us. All right. Linda, did you put your hand up?
Yes, we did
Okay.
have a question from our guest Joseph Waters about the SRO. the schools resource officer debate. And so I just wanted to let him know that
Sure.
we are aware of that. And I've had, I've been in conversations with actually Dr. Barrage, and then Theo and I have had some discussions about it, and we are seeking more information about it, and then we will bring that to the council for a formal position on it. And I'm just curious to know if Councilmember Dukes, because you're in that education space, if you know what's going on with it and if you had any thoughts on it.
No, they have not made any movement on that decision. I do know that, there are no SORs in schools, particularly in North Minneapolis. I believe that there are some discussions in other parts of the city to, implement SROs, but not, where I believe, in my opinion, it's most needed, which is unfortunate.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. Is it the Senate Council that's having this debate on? Who's having a debate on the SRR? Who's responsible?
Yeah, there's some there was some legislation about it, and then they want to amend. There's some amendments that are going forward, and I see that our guest has raised his hand. He might know more information about it than I do, but so.
Mr. Waters, we'll give you time. We got a little bit of time here. You wanna say something about that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. That was the other point that I was thinking about when I was fixing my dinner. Was the SRO, and I want to thank Councilmember Dukes because he's the one that shook my memory on that issue. I know Representative Frazier led the bill last session because basically what it amounts to is that police departments use what is known as reasonable standards in just about everything. Suddenly, when a reasonable standard is applied to the SRO situation, the lawyer for the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association basically objected to the bill. And that's kind of been a discussion all summer. And Minority Leader DeMuth, along with her Republican colleagues, wanted to make some changes to the bill because as it stands right now, there's even controversy between, say, Chief Law, who's the black chief down in Egan, and Sheriff DeWitt about the use of force in this particular case. I think Chief Law says, I don't see it as a problem, or maybe it was Chief Hodges that says, I don't see it as a problem, where Sheriff DeWitt says, I do see it as a problem. We're pulling our resources out of the schools. And then Councilmember Duke had mentioned how some of our students are hurting. And then they talked about the situation in St. Louis Park where they felt the SROs should have been there and to help break that up. So as it stands right now, there's emergency legislation going through, and it's going to be turned over to the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Standards Boards to write standards on how school resource officers are to respond to specific situations. That's why I was asking if you guys had an opinion on it.
Yeah. So it has to do a lot too with like chokeholds and that kind of thing. How do you subdue students when there's an issue? Yeah. So, but thank you for bringing that up, because then now the council is aware of that. But yeah, we do have our eye on that. And I know that there was a meeting, was that Monday or late last week?
Today, actually, there's probably an ongoing meeting right now in public safety in the House, and then yesterday in education. The bill moved forward. Yeah. So the bill, this particular bill then repeals the ban on SROs doing prone restraint. But I do want to flag, though. I mean, it's a difficult problem because the reason for that law last year is when you look at the data, both in Minnesota and around the country, around discipline disparities and the removal of students of color, specifically Black students, particularly Black boys and girls, from learning environments based on discipline. dismissal and such. So it's a tricky, it's a difficult dilemma. So so but I think that we have to keep tracking it and engage on how they would address some of those other community concerns and the kind of concerns that Councilmember Dukes has raised.
Yeah, and I think, that's the challenge with law enforcement in general. The issue is the other side of that coin is there are some officers that are mentors and really connect with students and can keep, the violence down and maintain order. And so the law, prohibits them from, being able to do that great work in the schools, which is unfortunate as well. So it's tricky, but there's two sides, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but Theo, keep us up to speed with what we need to do as a council, as far as support or whatever the bill is. We'll count on you to keep us posted on that. Thank you. All right. So, any announcements?
Just legislative training and day on the Hill.
Yeah, legislative training coming out on Friday. Make sure we
Thursday legislative training.
Thursday.
Please register.
Yeah.
Right.
And tell your folk to register.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially if you're interested in the African American Family Preservation Act, because then Theo will be using that as a model in terms of how to move legislation forward. So it's a two-part kind of training exercise. So it'll be good. I'm excited for it.
All right. Great.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds good. If nothing else, we've got about 9 minutes. I'll let you all go and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah.
So the meeting is adjourned at this point. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you again next time. Thank
Okay.
you.